This is Dr. Warren Vander Hill with the Ball State Oral History Project interviewing Dr. Grant Wells, Emeritus Professor of Finance. Grant, I want to begin by thanking you for agreeing to help me with my research project. The first question I'd like to pose to you is to ask you to tell me a bit about your background, where you're from, your educational background, and perhaps some of the things that you did before you ultimately made that big decision, and that is to join the Ball State faculty. So, the floor is yours, sir.
Good morning. As Warren said, my name is Grant Wells. I'm from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Warren is from the Lower Peninsula. My hometown is Iron Mountain, Michigan. And I did my undergraduate work at Northern Michigan in Marquette. Left there in 1952. And I joined the General Motors Corporation immediately after my graduation from Northern in 1952. Started to work as an accountant for the General Motors Corporation plant in Elyria, Ohio. At that time it was called the Brown Light Shaping Plant, which was the division of General Motors. They were later bought out by Fisher Body.
How do you spell that? Go back to that Brown Light Shaping?
Brown Light. B-R-O-W-N hyphen L-I-P-E.
Okay.
Chapin, C-H-A-P-I-N.
Okay. As in Roy Chapin.
Right.
Yeah.
I worked with the Elyria, Ohio General Motors plant from 1952 until 1956, and at that time I joined, it was called Gregory Industries, which later became a division of TMW, or Thompson Ramo Woolridge, TRW. And I worked with them for about 4 years, so I have about 9 or 10 years industrial experience. I later, at that time, felt that maybe my calling, instead of being in accounting full-time, would be to give education a try. So I then went with the Lorain, Ohio school system, which is a AAA system in Ohio, or the highest you can have, teaching in the field of business. After a point of spending, I think, 6 years in the Ohio system, I decided to pursue my doctorate at Indiana University. I should state I decided to pursue first my master's degree, and then finishing the master's, the people at Indiana asked me if I'd be interested in pursuing a doctorate under their current people. And Helen and I was teaching in Ohio at the time. I took a 2-year leave of absence, and we had a business in Ohio, accounting business, and decided to move full-time to Indiana University. I finished the master's in 1963, pursued the doctorate starting in the fall of 1963, finished all of the coursework by 1966. The dissertation was not finished yet. Came up to Ball State because there was an opening. My chairman and a number of the people in my committee said that Ball State was a great institution, a good teacher's college, but you'll have to work a lot more here than you have to do at other schools. So that is my background as far as education, where I came from, and why I came to Ball State.
When you came to Ball State, when you made the decision to join the faculty here, did you have any other academic options at that point?
Yes, I was offered a position at Eastern Michigan. Another potential place was Radford College in Virginia, which was an all-girls school. The reason I chose Ball State is because after being offered a job here, I realized my dissertation was not completed, and I was 120 miles from IU and my chair people down there at IU, and I felt this was a good proximity from Indiana University, Bloomington, to Muncie.
Okay. When you joined the faculty here in the College of Business, did you, in your heart, really think you were going to stay here for your entire academic career?
I thought this would be a stop along the way.
Okay.
I can recall when we had our first fall session in September of 1966, John Emmons, President Emmons, asked, would the new candidates please stand up? At that time, 109 of us stood up, probably the largest class they ever had of new recruits. And as I worked here with Bob Bell, Dean Bell, and a lot of my colleagues, and with the proximity to Bloomington and my chair and people at IU, I grew to love the place, and I also realized that Muncie was a great place to raise a family.
Okay.
And as I spent more years here in the Muncie area, of course we all have gripes every now and then, but I realized this has been a great place for Grant Wells and his family.
Okay. Well, you really answered my next question, although if you want to embellish it a bit, you can, or add to it, and that is, I always ask people at this point, why'd you stay?
Why did I stay? Well, the family was pretty well ingrained in the Indiana Hoosier philosophy. The children enjoyed themselves. And I did tell Helen, or I asked her one time, I said, Helen, if we stay here until I retire, I'd like to go back to Bloomington. And Helen has always said, let's stay in Muncie. See, that's where all of our friends are. So this has become home. I'll probably die here. We do visit my homeland up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. But this is home.
But you've never had any real desire, being an Upper Peninsula guy, to go back to the UP?
It's a good question, Warren, because on a number of occasions I've been back to Northern Michigan University up at Marquette. And I've had a lot of offers up there, but God, I'll tell you, the winters there are just vicious, so there's no way I want to go back to Marquette.
Okay.
And I just felt that a mid-America school the size of Ball State, was a niche for me.
Okay.
I'm not a Big Ten man. In other words, I just feel that this location is proper for Grant Wells.
Mid-major public institution,
right,
as we like to say. I'm going to go way back on something just because I'm curious about it, but how did your parents get to the UP?
Let's see. My great-grandparents were from Montreal, Canada. Montreal.
Yeah.
And both my mother and dad have French backgrounds.
Okay.
My mother was born and raised in Little Falls, Minnesota, up near Brainerd, which, if you've ever been fishing up there, it's a great fishing location.
Yeah.
And my great-grandparents, as I stated, came from Montreal. And Iron Mountain at one time was known for copper mining and iron ore. So what happened is that my great-grandparents had a business in the Montreal area in the shipping business. And then I forgot the exact time when they moved to the Upper Peninsula, but they moved there strictly for commercial purposes, economic purposes.
Right.
And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Did you like growing up in the UP?
Well, my parents and I used to take a number of trips. But you asked did I like growing up in the UP. I had no experiences of other locations. But I'm a proud believer of the great outdoorsness in Iron Mountain. You have your summers, I think comes July 4th or July 5th. Your winter starts the day after. But as I look back, the Upper Peninsula is a great place to live if you love fishing, hunting, tobogganing, skiing. I mean, you have it there.
Right.
My only complaint about the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is that it's cold. I can recall New Year's Eve sometimes 30 and 40 below.
Right.
And we didn't have oil viscosity of 5 weight or 10 weight.
Right.
We'd have a regular weight. And you take coals from the furnace, put underneath the pan of the car, but heat the oil before you could leave. So I love to visit Iron Mountain and the Upper Peninsula, but I want a steady diet, and the answer is no.
In what ways did Ball State change while you were a member of the faculty here?
When I came here in 1966, I believe that the enrollment at that time was between 12,500 and 13,000. At one juncture, we got up to about 20,500. A good-sized school. What changes have we had? Well, as a member of the College of Business, we had a lot of changes. We had Bob Bell as my first dean, then we had J.B. Black, and then we had Neil Palumba. I got along with all of them very well. and I consider them to be friends of mine. The major changes in the College of Business at that time, we started off over here in the Practical Arts building with classes there. My first office was in the old barracks, the wooden frame barracks, which was the experience, I guess it was called North Hall, I think, if I can recall correctly.
Right.
Then we went there, when we went from there to the Quonset huts, which at one time was part of the architecture area.
Right, right.
And that was a thrilling experience, especially in 1977 and 78 with that huge snowstorm that we had.
Yeah.
And then we had the new building. So a lot of changes. I guess the biggest change would be how the College of Business has shifted from one time to being, shall we say, 2,000 to 3,000 students. We hit about 5,000, I think, at one time as far as the maximum enrollment. So I've seen the college grow from, shall we say, 2,000 to 3,000 up to about 5. We're a little lower than that now. Had a shift up in a lot of different buildings. We're in our new building now. And I thoroughly enjoyed my experiences at Ball State. But another comment I'd like to make, back in, I don't recall the exact years, but I was chairman of the Financial and Budgetary Affairs Committee for 2 years. And Jim Cook and I sat down and we talked about converting from a quarter system to a semester system. Right. Now, as I look back over my tenure at Ball State, I really believe that this was a major change for the university. And I mean this from a positive point of view, because at one time we had 3 grades we had to go through every year, all these exams and so forth. Yeah. So going from a quarter to a semester system, I think really was a major change that Ball State made, and I'm happy that I was part of that, thinking.
What about the change initiated by Provost Cook to what we've come to call these days a greater emphasis on scholarly productivity, the introduction of merit and market pay components, the junking of the old teachers' college-based fixed salary schedule and such? I mean, the College of Business was a real leader in that because Bob Bell certainly pushed that agenda and urged on Jim Cook when he became provost to implement those kinds of changes for the entire institution.
When I came here in 1966, the emphasis at that time was on good teaching.
Right.
Very little emphasis was placed in the area of research. As we have grown over the 35 years that I've been around here, I've seen a major switch from, well, let me rephrase this. They still want good teaching.
Right.
We used to have 3 parts: teaching, research, community service, university service, and so forth. And in my earlier days, if you did well in 2 of the 3 areas, for example, good teaching and university service, community service, you were promotable, you were given raises and so forth and so on. And I understand the rationale at this time why we have changes. Since we are sort of a mid-sized university, we are looking for more exposure through research. And I certainly applaud that this is being done. To get raises now, from what I understand, you must have X amount of research done within a certain period of time.
To get tenure.
To get tenure, that's correct. Now, in reference to, it's another point I'm thinking of here.
That's all right.
Okay. Oh, yes. Dean Black, whose predecessor was Dean Bell, realized they could not go out and hire highly qualified faculty under the current pay scale. I know when I came here, we had they showed me a chart, salary chart, and it said there was a line on that particular chart that said, okay, now no more than 5 years will be granted for outside service. You recall that?
Sure, same thing happened with me. It's called the old salary grid.
Right. So anyway, I was able to convince Dr. Bell, Dean Bell, when I came here, that I had corporate experience and educational experience. I was a teaching associate at IU for 2 years. So they gave me 8 years on the salary scale, and I really felt great about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do you view all of these changes, and they certainly have been significant in your life and in the life of the college and the university, as positive or negative?
I'll have to review this as positive.
Okay.
Because the changes that have been made us a more shall we say, an institution that we can compete with other schools in the MAC.
Okay.
When I first came here, the school that everyone talked about was Miami
Right.
of Ohio as being, shall we say, the premier
Right.
MAC school.
Mhm.
As I look back over all the years that I've spent here, I can say that in many areas, such as economics in the College of Business, I think ranks either 1 or 2. We've done great things.
Mhm.
So as far as being positive, yes, I think the changes that have taken place in the past have certainly improved the image.
Mhm.
I want to emphasize the word image of Ball State. And I've been very pleased to be associated with Ball State for almost 40 years.
Okay. One of the things that was really important during your tenure on the faculty is achieving AACSB status. And you want to comment on that a little bit, because I realize that for Dean Bell and Dean Black, this was a major leap forward for the College of Business.
In 1972 or 73, I was on the search committee for the next dean for the College of Business. Bob Bell was moving up into a vice presidency position, and we were looking for a man that had a lot of good qualities, good character, and so forth. I was one of 6 members of the College of Business on this search committee. We had 196 candidates applying for that position, and we narrowed it down to 8, 2 internal candidates and 6 on the outside. The first person we asked in was J.B. Black. He was our first candidate. We interviewed a number of others, and we ended up with J.B. Because J.B. told us at that time he wanted a new building. He wanted accreditation. He wanted to break the salary scale.
Right.
And J.B. had a good background at Wright State and Kemper, and he was at Miami of Ohio. So we brought this man in at the right time, because we did accomplish, we did achieve the new building, AACSB. We broke the salary scale.
Right.
And actually from about 1973 on, and before that, because Bob Bell did a great job as the dean at that time, but Bob Bell broke the ice with the administration to let people realize that we could not grow unless we had a salary scale that would be competitive with other MAC schools, other schools of our size around the United States. So those 2 gentlemen did a great deal in achieving what the College of Business had to do to make us competitive.
Okay. Who are some of the people, either here or elsewhere, who have had a special impact on your career?
That's a very interesting question, Warren, because I've thought about this many, many years. And probably the man that has had the greatest influence on me, other than my father, was Americo Ferrucci, who was my biology and chemistry teacher in high school.
You have to spell that.
I can't spell it.
Americo?
Americo. He's Italian. Americo Ferrucci.
Americo, I guess.
That would be correct, but Ferrucci, I don't know.
Ferrucci, okay.
But anyway, one of the greatest teachers I've ever had. He only had one arm because he was helping his parents in a cornfield, and he got his arm caught in a corn picker, and it mangled his arm. This gentleman, Mr. Ferrucci, won a number of awards in Michigan as one of the outstanding teachers. So I guess what I'm trying to state is that if I could emulate him as a teacher and as a professor, because he to me was really one of the best teachers I've ever had. He was difficult, but he was fair, he was honest, and when you took his classes, and he had tough classes, biology and chemistry, you knew that you're going to have to do a lot of work, but you were well rewarded for it. And then, further answer to that question, I guess I'd have to state, other than my father and mother, and Mr. Ferrucci in teaching, probably some of the pastors that I've had over the years in my church.
Oh, okay.
And I'm Catholic.
Uh-huh.
So as I look back, I have a number of good remembrances of good people.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your special areas of involvement in the university. Obviously, this could be things that you've done departmentally or collegiately or university committees, but what were the most important contributions that you look back that probably would be put under the heading of service?
As I look back over my years at Ball State, I think I can honestly say that my university service, my college service, and my department service has always ranked very, very high.
Right.
I've had very good experiences with the Financial and Budgetary Affairs Committee. We had a campus survey of 900 questionnaires that were sent out.
Right.
And we had a pretty good response of about 450, which is about 50%. I was chairman of the College Promotion and Tenure Committee for 9 years. And
that's combat pay.
After 9 years, and I might just as well, I'm not going to mention any names.
Yeah, right.
It's confidential, but a professor came in to me at the end of a meeting, and he says, "Grant," he said, "how did I do?" And I said, "I just can't tell you." I said, "You'll have to check with your chair." Mm-hmm. And he was a foreign professor, and being promoted to full professor meant so much to him. And he says, "Grant, I gotta know." He says, and I says, "I just can't tell you." He said, "You already have." And he broke out crying. So the next week I said I will no longer be a member of the college P&T. And I was chairman of the group for 9 years.
Right, yeah.
As I look back, I think that service that I did was above average. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it. I was a team player, and that's important, mm-hmm. to be a team player. So as I look back, I'd say that my service that I've given to Ball State, well, one of the things we should talk about also is that in the College of Business we used to have it's called the Mid-America Journal.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I did a lot of work with the Hook Drug Store. I wrote 4 or 5 major histories. Mm-hmm. One big firm out of Lafayette, Indiana. Mm-hmm. They were involved in bromine, which is up there in the state of Michigan.
What's the name of that one?
I'm trying to remember that.
It's got a lot of
Great Lakes Chemical.
Great Lakes Chemical, okay.
And
so you did Hook Drug, Great Lakes Chemical.
And Kimball International.
Kimball International.
And I was working on Sherwin-Williams.
Oh, as in paint.
As in paint, that is correct.
Covers the earth.
And I spent 3 hours with the chairman of the board. He took me along into the Silver Bullet room, where he invited 50 of his top men, and he said, "Okay, now here, each one of you will have a secretary, and in 1 month you're going to be fired. So use the telephones, use the secretaries, find yourself a job." So anyway, I've had some good experience. I have no complaints. Yeah. Well, also we did a lot of work with Silvertown, which is over here in Winchester.
Right.
And that was my first article as far as Silvertown.
Silvertown?
Oh, Silvertown, USA.
That's interesting enterprise.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Multi-millionaires.
Yeah, that's right. How about involvement in the community? Did you have any particular areas of interest there?
Well, I'm currently a member of the Exchange Club. Other than church work and with the university, I was not that well involved in the community.
So this is a little bit of a switch. So put on your Grant Wells thinking cap. It's a big question with me anyway. Do you think that the role of the faculty as the faculty at Ball State during the years you were here was an appropriate one as far as their place in decision making?
Coming from industry, right out of college, as I said before, about 9 years in industry, administrators are paid more because they make the decisions. They take the heat. In answer to the question regarding faculty, yes, they should have an input, but the final decision has to be made at the top.
Okay.
They're the ones that will take the heat, or the results will be acceptable.
Okay.
I do believe in input, but I do not believe that faculty should rule the university.
Do you think during your tenure as a member of the faculty that the faculty had appropriate avenues to give the senior administration, whether it's college or university, that kind of input?
As a member of the University Senate for about 25 or 26 years, yes, we did have an input. Some professors were more, shall we say, antagonistic than others, because they wanted more input with the administrative decisions. But yes, the faculty did have a say as far as making recommendations, suggesting things that should be done. Did they have to be followed by the top administrators? The answer is no.
Okay. Well, since you were a long-time member of the University Senate, and I've been waiting to ask you this question, given what's occurred around here in the last year or so, do you think the faculty would have been better served by having a faculty senate rather than the university senate? Which, of course, included administrators and students.
When I was a member of the University Senate from the early 70s until probably about 1997, 1990, it was a long period of time.
Yeah.
There were many questions brought out by faculty members that it was really not a faculty senate. It was a faculty and administrative senate, which had a number of administrators involved as the Senate body.
Right, as well as a dozen students.
That's right. What was the question again, Warren?
Well, whether or not it would have been better, as some have said over the last couple of years in particular, if the university had a senate which was just faculty, rather than one that included administrators and students.
If faculty and administrators can work together as a team, and I think they can, you might as well put the problems on the table in front of both so they can sit down and get this resolved once and for all, instead of having two different bodies.
Right. Rather, I mean, the students already have a senate.
Right.
The administrators obviously don't have a senate.
Correct.
And the faculty, in the way it seems to be moving now at Ball State, it's going in the direction of the faculty having more of what I call a faculty voice that isn't diluted by having senior administrators and students.
I'm a firm believer, really, of working as a team.
Okay.
And in that manner, a lot of time it will not be wasted between two bodies. You can air your differences, your comments, your questions. You can sit down and talk about it peaceably, on a one-on-one basis.
Okay. Okay. Switch to a larger topic. How do you, during the years you've lived here, see the relationship between what's called the town and the gown?
Spending a number of years in Bloomington, Indiana, I believe there was a very close relationship between Indiana University and the governing body and the people of Bloomington. I do not think that is done here in Muncie, Indiana.
Do you have any idea why that's not the case here? Just speculate.
I have a feeling that there is a major difference in educational backgrounds between the residents of Muncie and the university.
Unlike Bloomington.
Unlike Bloomington.
Or Ann Arbor, places like that.
Or also unlike West Lafayette and Lafayette.
Okay.
A question came up earlier we were discussing, and at that time I was thinking about John Hannaford.
Yeah, right. One of my all-time favorite people.
Our associate dean in college of business for a number of years. John was a very kind person, hardworking, very intelligent. But he could not work with the city council in Muncie. And I know John on many occasions said, Grant, he says, it's almost impossible to work with them down there. Now, is there a major block between the townspeople and the university, it appears that there is.
Do you think that's a result of what one might call an anti-intellectual attitude in the community?
I'll phrase it this way. It appears to me that Muncie has always been a blue-collar community.
Okay.
And we lost a lot of industry in the last 10 years.
Right.
Other than Ball State and Ball Hospital, there aren't too many organizations left here.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say this was a blue-collar and hourly and not a salary town.
An hourly and not a salary town. Okay, that's a good point. You know, reflect back to when you came here in the 60s. I mean, do you think this has gotten worse in the years that you've been here?
I think one of the areas that has helped out is the Emmons Auditorium.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And everyone in the community and the surrounding areas are invited to performances and so forth. So I think the Emmons Auditorium has been a major catalyst
Mm-hmm.
to invite the town and gown together for performances and so forth.
Which is the way John Emmons wanted it to be, and why
Yes.
it's called Emmons College Community Auditorium.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think that when I first came here in 1966, I can recall a number of comments people made. Okay, Wells, it's been this way for years, we're not going to change it.
Right, yeah.
And the reason I said this is because where I came from, we had sidewalks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't have them around here.
That's right.
And they said, okay, it's been this way for years, we're not going to change.
Yeah, right.
I see changes coming about now.
Okay. Well,
And
do you think the university is, in recent years, more interested in trying to work with the city fathers, if you will, than perhaps was the case when you came to Muncie?
Good question. I'm now, although I'm retired, working with Randy Hyman on a coalition committee.
Mm-hmm.
And at this juncture, the coalition committee is made up of city people, faculty, and we are working very closely with the city fathers.
Okay.
So I really believe that, yes, we are trying to get closer together.
This is coalition for what?
This is for, this all was brought about by the death of a student on campus.
Oh, yeah.
And drinking.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So there are about 10 of us. We're working with the neighborhood association.
Okay.
And I'm with the Kenmore Association.
Okay.
So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, those are all the formal questions I have, but at the end of all of my interviews, I always give the people I'm interviewing an opportunity to add anything that might come to their minds, anything that might occur to them that they think might add to the interview. So this is your opportunity to pontificate on anything you wish to pontificate about.
Well, as I look back over the years I spent at Ball State, I can actually state that I made many friends here. Warren, you're one of my friends, not my fishing partner, but we can talk about
that's for sure.
The outdoors.
Right.
I've had very good experiences with President Worthen, who we could sit down and talk with hours with him regarding investments.
Sure.
Personal friend and just a fine person. I spent many hours with John Provost on a number of projects and thoroughly enjoyed working with him. My colleagues in the College of Business, great deal of respect for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Lowry just retired as of December 31st. Paul Parkinson and I retired 3 years ago. As I look back over the years that I've spent at Ball State, would I change it? The answer is no. Would I come back if I knew what ahead of me? The answer is yes. I've had great years here. I have no complaints. And I thoroughly enjoyed working with my colleagues in the College of Business. Thoroughly enjoyed teaching classes. I think most students enjoyed my work, but some of them who I gave F's and D's to. Well, one of the things I'd like to talk about, Warren, is that I would like to see a reprieve on faculty evaluations for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And the reason
just not do them for 2 years?
Eliminate
For 2 years.
all faculty evaluations for 2 years.
Student evaluation.
Student evaluations. Let the faculty teach.
Mm-hmm.
Let the faculty give grades that the student deserves.
Mm-hmm.
Let faculty when they give grades out, are not going to be worried about penalty for tenure, penalty for promotion. I can recall 15 of us had lunch with President Worthen one time, and the President said, "Any comments from faculty?" I said, "Yes, President." I said, "Give us a 2-year reprieve on student evaluations." And I told him why. And one Chinese fellow professor said, "Amen." I would like to see this for 2 years, because this, I really believe, would increase the quality of the university.
Interesting idea. Anything else you'd like to add?
I enjoyed working with you, Warren. And
well, I really appreciate you doing the interview. I need to get some COB perspective in my interviews, and you happily reminded me that our colleague and pal Lowry retired, so now I can do an interview with him. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, but I definitely want to get a hold of Jim and get him over here, along with our mutual friend and my accountant, Paul Parkinson, for some COB perspective. So thank you very much on Martin Luther King Day for taking the time to come in and to do the interview for my project. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate allowing me to make a few comments with you this morning.
Thank you.